Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Russ and Addison here to talk more about rookie pass catchers. And we're very specifically choosing the word pass catchers because there is one that is not a wide receiver. We talked about this last week, what we were going to do. So I don't even need to tease it. We're talking about Brock Bowers amongst other wide receivers, who is, I think, tight end 2 at the moment, but we'll talk about him a little later. I want to talk about a man that, as the draft process, rookie draft process, not like the NFL draft process, was going on, I started listening to this guy more and more. I started reading, I started watching, and I'm just like, no, okay. I am just flat out in on Brian Thomas Jr. And it was the right call.
Yep.
Trevor Lawrence looks not great.
Nope.
Really crossing my fingers that once Evan Engram comes back, the offense will click a little bit better, but that's not the point. Because Brian Thomas Jr. is doing really, really well. He's wide receiver 21 in points per game at the moment, which, when you look at what the Jaguars offense is doing, that sounds great.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm in on Brian Thomas. Wow, Brian Thomas Jr. You have anything you want to add to Brian Thomas Jr. before we just keep going?
No, other than just the fact that if he's doing this now, I'm curious to see what he does. Because, a lot of the time with like rookie wide receivers, we talk about post bye week or like second half kind of thing, which I don't know when the Jags bye week is necessarily. But first 2 weeks, he only had 4 targets each. And then the last 2 weeks, he's had 9 targets each. So his role definitely growing just over the past month. And we'll see, what happens if Evan Engram kind of changes that at all, or that week. What was that? 12? It's like 21 or 3, but week 12. Okay. So he kind of has that kind of like, late November into December kind of potential for a Rashee Rice, what he did at the end of last year, which still too early. Anyway. But hopefully as the season progresses, as BTJ is already doing this stuff, that as he gets more comfortable, as hopefully Lawrence and the offense gets better, hopefully, that BTJ, his KTC value, I think, is wide receiver 14 already. So he's climbing.
As I believe he should. So let's get into the trade. 12-team, 1 quarterback. Brian Thomas Jr., Derrick Henry, and a 25-second, oh boy, for T. Higgins and 2 26 firsts. Interesting. Brian Thomas Jr., 445, Derrick Henry, 183. The 25-second is 121 for a total of 752. T. Higgins, 467. The 26 firsts are 267 each, totaling 1,001. So this is putting BTJ above T. Higgins, which, I mean, they're probably close enough. I would probably still be me and want T. Higgins, but I think it's fine either way. I think you're going to get more points this season out of Brian Thomas Jr., but next year is when I think we might get a value bump out of T. Higgins if he goes to a better, well, it's tough to go to a better situation than the Bengals, but goes to a place where he's the dude and he might be getting Brian Thomas Jr. level targets.
Washington. Sorry. Yeah, clear my throat there.
Sorry, I'm looking at a Washington jersey over there to see if I would like the 5 in Higgins. And I don't hate it. I don't love it, but also that means they'd play the Giants and I'd be able to at least go see him play,
There you go.
Pretty regularly if I wanted to. I want powder blue. I want him on the Chargers so I can get that powder blue jersey.
I'm here for it. I just want them to throw more than 10 times a game.
When you have T. Higgins, you throw more than 10 times, or they all 10 just go.
Or
to
all 10 goes. All go to T. Higgins. Yep, that's fair.
Okay, but let's get back to the trade. Okay, so Brian Thomas Jr., Derrick Henry, and a second for T. Higgins and 2 26 firsts. And it's funny because T. Higgins being on the pick side shows that it's future value you're thinking of when making this trade, because you're getting 2 26 firsts. Do you know how to feel about this?
I want the T. Higgins and the 2 first side. I think obviously I'm taking the first over the second, and I would take the first over Derrick Henry. I feel like that's kind of like, I would never, if I was competing and I wanted some running back production, I don't think I would ever pay a first for Derrick Henry ever again, even with him running for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns like each of the past 2 weeks. But I feel like that's too much dynasty value for me to lose for
Oh yeah,
the
he's
short-term
retiring on your
production.
squad at that point.
Yeah. And like I would take BTJ over T. Higgins, but I feel like I'm also a T. Higgins apologist. Not to the same level that you are, but I really, really like T. Higgins. I've been trying to buy him for the past couple of weeks. And so like I would rather have BTJ than Higgins, but I like having T. Higgins, and I would also just prefer having the extra 2 first. So I want the Higgins and the 2 first side.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. Well, let's put it this way: if I'm competing and I have a bunch of 26 firsts, maybe in a couple of weeks I'd be willing to send one of those for Derrick Henry. It's the way this season is playing out. I'm terrified to spend future capital on players because they're just getting injured. Everyone.
That's the thing. Like if Derrick Henry gets hurt, at his age, that first round pick is going to look like that would like Nick Chubb, or Austin Eckler. Look what happened to them. They were younger and just as productive as Derrick Henry is now. Like that's the issue with buying a running back that old for the production now.
Yeah, I think I stick with T. Higgins also, but I don't dislike this as much as you do, but it's still the value. I don't know if I necessarily agree with the analyzer at how far apart the value is, but I agree that the Higgins side is more. And yeah, the point, Derrick, all you're pretty much doing is buying Derrick Henry's points with this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you're buying back 4 years of wide receiver age, which is nice, but production wise, it's probably going to be very similar.
I feel like that needs to be like Kenneth Walker or somebody,
someone who's producing, but is a decent amount younger,
a little younger, more longevity. Yeah.
Okay.
James Cook, somebody like that.
Yeah, I can get behind that. It would definitely make it a little bit more enticing dynasty wise.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to the next one, where it is a 25 early first and Brian Thomas Jr. for CeeDee Lamb. Then early first at 585, Brian Thomas Jr. 445 for a total of 1033. CeeDee Lamb by himself 920. No, let's just call it 930. Doing what we're supposed to be doing. 2 for 1, overpaying for the stud, overpaying because it's a 2 for 1. A little over 100 point value, pretty much at a 25-second overpay. The fact that it's an early first has me, I don't know enough about.
So this is a Debbie league. This is Luther Burden. This wasn't like just Brian Thomas Jr. in a first. This is a Debbie league where it is literally Luther Burden and Brian Thomas Jr. for CeeDee Lamb.
All right, you need to tell me who that is.
It's him and Tech McMillan are the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. Luther Burden is the wide receiver out of Missouri who has been basically proclaimed as the wide receiver 1 in this class for about 2 years now.
Except now it's Tech McMillan, so it's fine.
Well, sure, but Burden looks fantastic. I mean, he had 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns as a sophomore last year at Missouri.
Yeah, but it's not Missouri. I don't know what that means. Don't come at me for that. I was just joking. Yeah, I think I still do this for CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb only 25. Gotta be honest. Even if they do get Devontae Adams, which is the rumor right now that they're one of the teams that Adams has been talking to.
Dallas?
Yeah, Dallas. And
I saw it was just the Jets and the Saints because he wants to go.
No, those are the
teams
he wants to go to, not the teams that were talking to the Raiders.
Oh,
I love Brian Thomas Jr. I really do. I'm going to assume what's the guy's name again?
Luther Burden.
I'm sure once I look into who Luther Burden is, I'll probably really like him as well. But it's CeeDee Lamb, and I just do this for CeeDee Lamb.
Luther Burden, because I know that you like this stuff too. Never mind. I thought he was bigger. He's 5'11", 208 on ESPN. For some reason, I thought he was one of those like 6'3", 220 kind of guys that you love.
No, that's what Tech McMillan is, and that's why I'm a
fan. Luther Burden is fantastic, though. I just want to remove all that, and I just want to take CeeDee Lamb. This is like exactly what I talk about doing all the time of trying to do 2 for 1s at the wide receiver position, and it just happens that this is a Debbie league where the prospects that you have, and it's not just like, could be a projected top 3 first, which could be Burden or Tet, or if it's a super flex, maybe it's a quarterback. This is Luther Burden. We know the prospect. We know the type of player that he's projected to be. But pair that with BTJ and just go get CeeDee Lamb. I mean, it's CeeDee Lamb.
It makes sense to get rid of the maybe for the known when the known is a stud.
Yep.
Yeah, one of them might hit. Both of them might hit. But you get CeeDee Lamb right now, and that's worth the gamble to me, because what happens if Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't get better and he just sticks around as that wide receiver 20-something? It's not bad. It made me a little sad. Maybe a little mad.
I was just about to say, did the Dynasty community pass us by? Are we lower on BTJ because we picked against him in both these deals? Or does this just showcase that his value is maybe outweighing where we even wanted him to be?
Yeah, his value might be a little high. Like, again, that first trade, I don't think it's egregious. This is probably on par. Like, again, it being, to put it in regular Dynasty terms, let's just say this is Brian Thomas in the 103. Like, that's a strong offer of some, like, that's what, 103 and the 104 pretty much? Or actually, that's a lie. Like, this will be the 102 and the 103. Assume that Brian Thomas Jr. won't be worth the 101, whoever it ends up being. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a pretty strong offer for CeeDee Lamb, the 102 and the 103.
I don't know. There are definitely some trades in the trade finder that I could have pulled that were like kind of easily Brian Thomas. Like somebody traded Derrick Henry for Ayuk and BTJ, which I don't know. They really wanted the production, and they were really mad at Brandon Ayuk.
Maybe it's an Empire League or something where they just need to win. I will say I did an Outhouse Challenge yesterday or the day before. I can't remember anymore. Time is a Jeremy Bear me, baby. I can't remember. But the trade was Brian Thomas Jr. for Tank Dell and a 25-second.
That is in here somewhere.
Yes, because it went through.
There it is.
Yeah. Yep. It was 56.8% to 43.2% in favor of Dell in the second. Like, that makes me feel like people aren't super high on Brian Thomas Jr. because people are really low on Tank Dell right now.
Yeah. There's another one in here where somebody traded Pickens for BTJ and a second. So you had to add to BTJ just to get to Pickens.
Pickens is doing really well with okay quarterbacking.
But then there's another deal in here where this was like 4 days ago. Someone traded Nico for BTJ and Nick Chubb. So,
yeah, that's not right.
Or they really don't know what Nico Collins is doing right now. It's like a top 5.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it just depends on if you don't have BTJ, try to figure out who the manager who has BTJ is. Is he more of like BTJ is a dynasty wide receiver 1, or is he like, there are some other good wide receivers like Tank Dell or George Pickens, or there's like a Michael Pittman and Michael Wilson for BTJ. Like, can you pivot easily from some other maybe slightly older or slightly less productive asset to Brian Thomas Jr., or do they value him as a top 12 guy?
Let's move on to the man that was being drafted right next to him, usually right before him. And the man who might be the resurgence of Patrick Mahomes being able to throw the ball more than 6 yards per pass in Xavier Worthy. Just all I have to say is just stay away from Patrick Mahomes, because he might try and take your knees out, because that's apparently what he does to his number 1 pass catchers.
Still too soon, Russ.
Especially with Rice out, I hope to see his usage get a little bit more consistent, because it really hasn't been the first 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. But I was always a very big fan of the player. During rookie drafts, I was taking him over BTJ, even though towards the end of rookie drafts, I just started trading for both the 110 and 111 so I can get both of them. So I'm a big fan of this player. I don't think he's just a deep threat. I think he is so much more. We saw him get some carries, which is still going to keep happening. And if they don't bring in another wide receiver, they're going to have to use him more all over the field. And hopefully he can show that he's worth using all over the field. Are you as happy about Worthy as I am?
My fear kind of had been coming true a little bit, that he was being used more as a one-trick pony that had, him getting rush attempts, I feel like that's just like smart usage. Like, he should get end arounds and stuff, because if he has an opening,
he's fast.
Yeah. But like, my fear is that he was not going to come in and really garner a bunch of targets, because that was Rashee Rice and that was Travis Kelce's role, and Kelce had been what he had been. Rashee Rice just got everything apparently. But like, he hasn't had more than 4 targets in a game yet. And that's including last week where, granted, like, I'm sure Rashee Rice was part of the game plan last week and he just happened to get knocked out of the game in like the first drive, and he did score a touchdown, but it was a 54-yard touchdown. So outside of that, he had 2 catches for 20 yards. Yes, that's
a really nice touchdown.
But that's like my fear of what Worthy might just end up being. And if he doesn't solidify himself as like a really top target earner with Rashee Rice out, I fear that he is going to be, like he might just be Jameson Williams, or he might just be, Henry Ruggs or somebody like that. Like that, just a deep threat, kind of inconsistent. I don't want to say he's Gabe Davis, but like that's been my fear with Worthy the entire draft season, and with him getting drafted by the Chiefs, and even up till now, I still hold true on that is my fear. And we're going to find out really, really quickly with Rice out.
Yeah, that this really is like not make or break really, but like this is his first chance to be like, let me show you what I can do. Like give that dude a couple of screens and like get 2 or 3 blockers in front of him and he'll be gone.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get to the trades. 12-team Superflex. Wow, with a full point premium for tight ends. And the trade is Xavier Worthy for TJ Hawkinson. Xavier Worthy at 262, TJ Hawkinson at 292. Hawkinson coming back week 7-ish, I think they said, which like is pretty exciting. That's soon. We're at 5, 6, and he might be back at 7.
Yeah, I was expecting him more in November, but if it's late October, it's kind of still in line with full recovery ACL.
I mean, the bad part is we're going to want to play him right away, and he won't be ready to play right away, or not like we won't be able to play to his level for sure.
Right.
With MVP Sam Darnold.
Well, yeah, there's that.
Playing like it. Okay, so Worthy for Hawkinson, and with that premium, I get it. During draft time, I would have said that Hawkinson was worth more than the pick it would take to get Xavier Worthy. I haven't in my mind, I have not let Hawkinson's value dip at all. He was crushing it last year before he got hurt. And he's 27. He's young still. Even if you want to be an ageist, tight ends at the age of 30 isn't a big deal, and he's only 27. This might be a little bit of a write-off of a season because he might start getting right just towards the end, which is playoffs at least. That's still pretty important. I do think I agree that Hawkinson is worth more because I'm not, especially with a full point premium, I'm not dropping Hawkinson's value at all. And this is a depressed value, plus it's only 0.5 PPR when it needs to be doubled the premium. So put him up to that 320, 330 area, which pretty much puts us around adding a 25 second to it. Well, maybe not more quite, but yeah, give me Hawkinson here. Assuming I know I'm so choked up at losing Xavier Worthy from my roster. Yeah, give me Hawkinson here. I think he's worth more. He comes back, he'll be more consistent production. I don't know. Like, I'm very curious to see what happens next year when Kelsey might retire. Like, what's going to happen with that offense when it's not Kelsey and Rice?
To be fair, we kind of saw a little bit because Kelsey hasn't been doing all that much. But
the second Rice was out, Kelsey had like 10 targets.
Right. And I'm sure that there's still defensive attention moving towards Kelsey because it's still Travis Kelsey. Like, you can't just plug in Noah Gray into the Travis Kelsey role and expect defenses to respect him as a receiver or blocker the same way that they do Kelsey now, even at 34, 35. So, so there's that.
I'm still, the more I think about it, the more this is pretty easily Hawkinson for me.
I will say, you did mention something where you said if you are kicking off a rebuild right now, like if you are 1-3, 0-4, you just had Hawkinson sitting on your IR. I think even in a 2, I do agree. I would like something with Xavier Worthy. I don't think I would do it 1-for-1, but I do think that Worthy would be the better long-term asset to have because you get the upside of, well, what if now with Rashee Rice out that he just maybe not explodes, but he really asserts himself, like he is the wide receiver 1. And then we head into 2025 with that, with Rice coming off of an ACL injury, possible suspension still coming down next year. Kelsey's probably gone. Like Worthy's upside, it could be kind of like Brandon Ayuk early on in his career, where, Debo was kind of in and out of the lineup, but he had his breakout year. Kittle was kind of in and out of the lineup as well. Like Worthy could kind of have that slower ascension, but then once he gets into that point, like he's there.
Yeah.
And I think Worthy is a better long-term asset to have than Hawkinson, because he can not only just climb the positional rankings higher, but like climb dynasty rankings higher. Because Hawk, I think I do agree that once he comes back onto the field, his value is going to go back up. Once he produces well for a few games, his value will go back up, but he's capped. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see him be over 450 points in the analyzer, but I could see Worthy being well into the 5s, if not even get up closer to 6. Like if he really comes on and does well. Like if he turns into Tank Dell for the remainder of the year, what Tank Dell did last year.
I love that comparison. Yeah.
Tank Dell went up even with Diggs there. I mean, he was a top 20 dynasty wide receiver.
Yeah.
Which is higher than Hawk being a top 3.
Yeah, exactly.
End, so.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Let's move. Okay, so next trade, 12-team 2-quarterback. Ooh, 12-team 2-quarterback. That's going to make this a very interesting conversation, because it is Nico Collins and Xavier Worthy for Trevor Lawrence and Kyron Williams. Whew. Wide receivers, and then 2 players I love on the other side. I actually really like all the players in this deal. And plus 2 quarterback is a huge deal with 12 teams and not super flex. Like that's starting quarterbacks are worth a lot. So Nico Collins for 69, Xavier Worthy 282 for a total of 751. Trevor Lawrence 559, Kyron Williams 351 for a total of 910. I am sad with Trevor Lawrence's play right now. Again, super hoping once Engram comes back, there's a more balanced passing game and they'll be able to make the offense click a little better. But my dreams of Trevor Lawrence being a top tier quarterback are probably out the window. I think it's probably just not going to happen at this point. But man, it being 2 quarterback is really like, you should probably bump up Lawrence's value, because you have to start 2 QBs instead of being able to flex another player in.
And in a league like this, half of the maybe not half, but like a handful of teams probably won't have a starter as their QB3.
Right, because there are 30 teams in the league? 32 teams, and 12 times 3 is 36. So there's going to be teams that are going to have to take zeros. The settings of this league is making me take the quarterback and running back. But man, do I want those wide receivers. Like, if you're telling me I have 4 quarterbacks on my team and I can still have 3 after this, like, because that's absolutely, if you're playing 2 quarterbacks, and let me reiterate, not super flex, 2 quarterbacks, like my first 4 draft picks would be quarterbacks if they are starters still.
Probably.
Because people will get, the first time someone has to take that 0, desperation will kick in. So if Trevor Lawrence, like if I still have 2 starters and like Bo Nix, just someone who's not great, but also not, well, Bo Nix did play a little terrible, but yeah. So like if I still have 3 quarterbacks, I think I'd be much more willing to do something like this. But still, man, the value, like to me, the value of this is easily Lawrence and Kyron. But my wide receiver bias is pulling at my heart real strong.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. I think on the surface, most people would be like, ooh, Trevor Lawrence, give me Nico Collins, and then Kyron for Worthy. That's like a dynasty trade, or a competing versus rebuilding trade. That's the essence of what is going on with that 1-for-1. But I agree, in a 2 QB league, Lawrence gains value. And I definitely do think that Nico Collins should be bumped up to probably like 6 into the 600s for this. So that's like
we talked about this last week and we settled on 600.
Well, then Nico went out and had like 11 for 150 and a touchdown on Sunday.
That's just what Nico does. It's no big deal.
He's in the 600s, but I think Lawrence is also in the 600s. So like because of the 2 QB format for this. So I think that this would be nice if you had 3 other starters. Like if Lawrence was your QB2, maybe you have somebody like Dak or Kyler or Love as your QB1. Your QB3 coming into the year, maybe you took the shot on Sam Darnold, or you had
Gino.
Daniel Jones or somebody like that, or Derek Carr. And then you just kind of like luxury drafted Drake May or Bo Nix in the rookie draft. Like, this is a very specific team that I'm building out to where this works.
Yes.
And it would be really, really fun to then move Trevor Lawrence for Nico.
Yes.
But it's that really specific circumstance where that trade, I think, only works for the Nico side. And in most other scenarios, if Trevor Lawrence is your QB2 and your QB3 was like Will Levis, or Gardner Minshew or Tua, even honestly at this point, like, there is concern there. There's risk of moving Trevor Lawrence for Nico and not getting a quarterback back in a 2-quarterback league. So,
yes. Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, it's Trevor Lawrence side. Even though, like, I hate that you. Ugh, gross. All right, let's just move on because you made me pick against wide receivers. So let's talk about Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is just very, very good. We thought he'd be very good. He is very good. I feel like we don't really need to sit and talk about him specifically. Is there anything you want to say?
It's a quarterback issue. That's 100% what it is. Is that, he had his worst game of the week this past week with 5 fantasy points, which 5 fantasy points for a tight end this year seems like that almost seems like a ceiling for most others.
He was tight end 6 or something, probably.
Yeah. But I mean, he himself looks fantastic. And if Devontae Adams is going to get traded in the next month, I mean, it's
many targets.
It's so many. That was what Adams was doing with Vegas the past 2 years. Is he just got peppered with targets, and now you put Brock Bowers into that situation as well. That would be, I mean, he's phenomenal. Just please, Vegas, draft a quarterback.
All right, so let's go. Brock Bowers, 12-team Superflex. Jared Goff and Brock Bowers. Caution: Team B is giving up the highest value asset and the most pieces in the deal for Joe Burrow, a 25 first, and Ben Sinnott. Well, when one of your pieces is worth 23.6, I don't feel like you should count that, but that's fine. Wow, that's rough for Ben. All right, so here we go. Jared Goff, 396. Brock Bowers, 360 for a total of 756. Joe Burrow, 734. 25 first, 397. And Ben Sinnott, 24. Total of 1127. This feels like someone is very low on Joe Burrow. Like, this is... I get that it's Brock Bowers. You don't have any sort of tight end premium here listed.
Yeah, no tight end premium for this one.
No, I don't get it. This is Joe Burrow, the Burrow side. Like, you might get a good amount of production coverage from Goff out of Burrow, but to me, Burrow is just better. And a first and Sinnott for Bowers. I get that that's not going to really get it done in the real world, but the analyzer kind of has it even. I mean, the analyzer has Bowers worth a 25 first, which I don't think anyone in their right mind is actually doing, especially with the way things are running right now. But, and again, Sinnott not being the greatest example of what to plug in on top of that first, but there's so much value extra from Burrow over Goff that maybe if it wasn't a first and it was another player worth a little less, and I don't know, like it's hard for me not to just pick the Burrow side here. And I don't know if that's me holding on to Burrow's value a little too much, but
no, I gravitated toward the Burrow side on this one too, because I think that I made a video, I think, prior to the season talking about trading down from Joe Burrow to Jared Goff as like a trade down option to pick up some extra draft capital or assets or something like that. Yeah. So if this was, and the analyzer kind of agrees, like if this was like Burrow and Sinnott for Goff and Bowers, like that's like perfect in the trade analyzer. I don't know if that would necessarily get done in the real world, considering
if people believe in Burrow right now, they're scoring pretty much the exact same.
Yes. Yeah. I think Burrow's QB 12 and Goff is QB 14 is what I'm seeing. Depending on your settings, probably.
Yeah. 13 and 15 in trade addict settings. So same thing.
Yeah. So they're basically scoring identically, and then you would take Bowers over the first. So there is that. But like, I just feel like adding a first to Joe Burrow is too much in this deal. I think if that was a 25 second, or like you said, it was some other kind of a player, that kind of rode that gap. Maybe you were looking for production, or maybe you're like, depending on what you needed, if it was, like Xavier Worthy or something like that, that kind of rode the first round pick kind of thing, but there was upside there for more. Or if you're looking for production and it was like Mike Evans, who kind of rides that gap, but is going to give you points now without the dynasty value. I feel like both of those might make a little bit more sense, but Burrow in the first I think that's too difficult for me to move for just Goff and Bowers.
If Jared Goff's name wasn't Jared Goff and he wasn't a guy who flamed out on his first team, you think his value would be a lot higher right now?
I think so. I mean, he's been a top 10 quarterback the past 2 years.
Yeah, so maybe it is worthwhile. Maybe it is just names hanging me up here.
It might be names and pedigree and.
But Goff was the 102, wasn't he? Or was he the 101?
Yeah, but I mean, like Burrow came in off of the LSU year and went to the Super Bowl in year 2, and he has all the media attention.
Yeah,
whereas Goff
he did that thing to his hair, and
he tried to turn himself into Slim Shady, and then
and now it's growing out, so it just looks like he has frosted tips. It's not great, Joe. It's not great. Because that's what we're here to talk about. Like when I put that into perspective, I dislike this a little less because it is absolutely true. But the thing is, it matters. It's like the difference between the 112 and the 201. Yeah, it's only one pick, but the perception of them are so different because there's a 1 and there's a 2 in the front. Jared Goff's value, even though he's going to keep scoring like a top 10, like he's going to be Kirk Cousins because Kirk Cousins didn't kill it right away, and he's not flashy at all. So it's going to be a little tough for Goff's value to ever go up, but that matters. But points are nice. Ugh. The answer is still Joe Burrow, but I'm convincing myself a little bit more as this conversation goes on that I don't dislike it as much.
If they both went on a tear over the next 12 weeks and they finished as a QB4 and QB5, Joe Burrow's value would go up a lot more, or there would be a lot more confidence in Joe Burrow once again, to where it would be like, oh, Burrow is back. He's back. And he's like a top 5 guy.
And then everyone would be selling Jared Goff.
And then, everybody would be like, oh, well, it was Jared Goff.
Yeah. Okay, we can move on. Next, 12-team, 1 quarterback. Brock Bowers and Chris Godwin. There's some points for Dalton Kincaid, Jaden Reed, and a 25-second. Okay. Brock Bowers, 396. Chris Godwin, 268 for a total of 667. Dalton Kincaid, 365. Jaden Reed, 315. 25-second, 121 for a total of exactly 800. Again, 3 for 2, overpaying. Highest valued player is Brock Bowers, overpaying. I just don't believe in Dalton Kincaid. That just give me Bowers and Godwin, really? Even though I love Reed, and he's even with Love out for those, it was a rough week 2, but week 3 he did pretty well, and then Love comes back and throws 54 passes, and a good amount of them went to Jaden Reed, so that went well.
He's the wide receiver 2 in fantasy right now.
Is he really? That's crazy.
Yes, he is. Oh wait, hold on. Sorry, wide receiver. He was wide receiver 2 in standard format. I don't know why when I switched the tab, it defaulted back to standard. He's a wide receiver 4 in PPR.
What's Godwin?
5. Yep.
And there's a 4-year age difference there. This is pretty easily Bowers and Godwin for me because you're getting the points, but you also have a 21-year-old stud tight end. I get that you're getting a 24-year-old wide receiver and a fine 24-year-old tight end, and you get the second on top of it. Maybe if I liked Kincaid more, this might be the Kincaid side just because of my Jaden Reed love. But this is Bowers and Godwin for me.
I'm taking the Kincaid and Jaden Reed side. I think that I would take Jaden Reed over Chris Godwin. For Dynasty and the production, like I just said, the production is basically identical. They're wide receiver 4 and 5. So when the production is almost identical, you want to take the guy, especially the guy that's 4 years younger at the same position. But I think so. Then that leaves Kincaid in a second for Bowers, and I don't love giving up Bowers for that, but I'm confident enough in Dalton Kincaid that I like getting the extra second on top. I like moving from Godwin to Reed and gaining age, buying age back. that I'm okay with using Bowers there, because it's not like Kincaid is some old guy at the tight end position. It's not like he is like some just production now kind of guy, or doesn't even have production that we can lean on to, and he's just like all hope and starry-eyed potential, you know? Like if this was Kyle Pitts, and I'm changing my tune on Kyle Pitts pretty rapidly over the past couple of weeks.
Don't really have a choice. Yeah.
Sucks. But like if this was Kyle Pitts, I would be more inclined to then just take Bowers and Godwin. But I think I've still seen enough from Dalton Kincaid to where he is utilized enough by the Bills that the production, I think, will follow, because the first couple of weeks they just blew out the teams and they like didn't throw in the second half. But like week 2 and 3, he was very involved for the game parts that they did throw. It's just his stat line only reflects like 50% of the games where they actually had to throw. So I still have confidence enough in Kincaid to where I like the rest of the deal around it to move off of Bowers.
Let me put it out there. Value wise, I agree with everything you said. I think Kincaid in a second would get you Bowers, and I do agree with just crossing out the wide receivers. I pulled up his stats, and it does make me feel a little better that his targets were 2, 4, 5, 7. They literally gone up every single week.
And like I said, the week 1 was weird. That one was, I just kind of threw that out. But week 2 and week 3, they blew out their opponents and didn't really have to throw in the second half. So that kind of reflects like a 50-60% game stat line.
Yeah.
And then, he looked good this past week in week 4 too. So
yeah, just give me Brock Bowers and Chris Godwin.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that side. I love both those guys too. This is a very good trade, I think. Yeah, it's right back there. Yep.
All right, but hold on. Let me scroll. Yep, that's it. That is the end of our show sheet. So thank you, everyone. This has been a DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes, Adam Mays Hayes _. We'll catch you next time.